Welcome, my friends, to another episode of Mark Kweppett Speaks. I am your self-mastery coach, Mark Kweppett, and I'm here to help you go all in on your mission in life and unleash your apex potential. And it's been a little while since my last video. A lot of stuff been happening. I'm going to fill you guys in on it. But the main point of this video is to share with you guys some new clarity that I've got, particularly around one of the bigger issues of the self-development sphere and I think plaguing the modern world as a whole, which is this idea of being able to go all in. And I think that this is such a powerful concept that it's striking me to my core right now. And I'm realizing that so much of my work and my purpose is really to help people go all in. Because I think we live in a culture chronically plagued by people who are just half in, predominantly because we are so absorbed in our distractions that our main strategy for dealing with life is to figure out, how can I get all my distractions in, all my stimulation in, and then do all the important stuff afterward? How do I fit and get that other stuff in too? But I'm not going to give up my distractions. I'm not going to give up my indulgences and whatnot. And it becomes this weird sort of thing where everybody focuses, like if we're going to make an analogy, it's like everybody lives focusing on how they're going to get their big pile of sweets and candy in. And then they figure out, maybe I can squeeze in a little bit of, vegetables and lean meat around the sides. But, I got to make sure I fill up on my junk food first, right? I think this is how so many of us live. And I think that we need to change that, really. And so what I want to share with you first here is kind of like what led up to this hitting me and how to really handle it. Because I think going all in is not an intuitive thing. Most of us think that means try and do everything all at once, which is just a recipe for disaster. So we're going to get into the specifics of what going all in really looks like and how you can do it realistically. But first I want to tell you a little bit about how I came to this conclusion. So as if you've been following me, it's been a little bit since my last upload, and I was really trying to commit to doing these on a weekly basis. And the issue was that kind of my life exploded in a number of ways. So obviously I launched the big Reforged Man cohort. It was going really well, and I had to deliver the content week to week because I launched it before I was ready, which was the whole topic of the last video, when I did that intentionally. And so, I was going to be fine with that and I was going along. But then my wife started having some pretty significant health problems. And she was the primary caretaker of my daughter, who's, 2 years old. And so with her not doing well, then it became, I've got to take care of her, or I have to figure out how to get someone else to take care of her. And so it became kind of this big mad scramble of trying to keep the cohort going, which people had paid good money to be a part of, and I really wanted to deliver well, to helping my wife, to then helping trying to figure out childcare for my daughter, and then watching my daughter. And basically my entire life was totally stacked. There is no space really for much of anything. And that just is the way things go sometimes. But the thing that really bothered me was that for the first time in a long time, with all that stuff going on, all that pressure really on me, I felt, pretty overwhelmed, is that I saw myself falling back into escapism. And I hadn't really done that in a significant way, in a truly counterproductive way in a long time, because I normally have a pretty decent amount of free time. And I could engage, I can goof off here and there and then be fine, because, I would construct my business in such a way where, I wouldn't have to work an insane amount of time. Sometimes, be bigger crunches than others. But in general, I was never really packed to the gills. But here I was, totally packed to the gills, barely having time for other stuff, having to stay up late, having to get up early, having to do all this kind of stuff so I can make sure everything keeps going. And I was escaping. Right? I was goofing off. I was scrolling social media a lot of times. I wasn't even scrolling because I was interested in something. It was just because I just felt like I needed to get away. I was dealing with stresses and worries and anxieties. And then the new Halo Infinite beta came out, and I was looking forward to this game for a long time. Competitive shooters are like my kryptonite. Those are like the thing that, like, you know, if I'm addicted to video games, it's addicted to that. I'm addicted to the hyper competitive first-person shooters. And it's been a while since I was really hooked on one. The last time I was like a few years ago on Overwatch. And like I started playing that. And I didn't have any time to be doing that at all. I didn't have any time to be doing that. And then even worse is I started watching like stupid YouTube videos about like, you know, strategies and how to get better and all that kind of stuff. And luckily I didn't do this for very long. It was like, you know, a few days or whatever. But I was just like, Mark, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing? You have so many more important things that you got to be taking care of right now. And on top of all this, my diet started to go to crap as well. I just started to lean on junk food and all that kind of stuff. Just like, you know, pounding, you know, cookies and crap and stuff like that at night. And it just all hit me. I was like, what on earth are you doing, Mark? Like, you need to be getting stronger. You need to be being more focused right now. And it's like, on one hand, you know, it's completely understandable. This is what happens. People get stressed and then their discipline will break down. They'll want to escape because their life is difficult. And so they're looking for their pleasure and all this kind of stuff. Obviously, I understand how this works, right? Like that's pretty much what my work is dedicated to. But what was striking to me was how I was back here, because this is the way I used to live. I mean, I used to be way worse, right? Because like, I only needed to do the bare minimum, really. Like, I only needed to do a little bit, and I couldn't even get myself to do that. You know, I would just pretty much drown myself in video games and porn and, you know, drugs and partying and all this kind of stuff. And that was a horrible existence, right? That just no one feels happy living like that. And I felt like I was getting tastes of that again. It was kind of like, you know, flashback to 10 years ago. I was like, where am I? And obviously I've come a long way from there, and it wasn't nearly as bad, and it was in many ways much more understandable because of the, you know, the pressure at least I was feeling. But at the same time, I was also just like, why is this still happening? Why is it that, you know, when things get harder, I'm not getting stronger, I actually stepped down and I got weaker? And I think so much of it has to do with your level of buy-in, or your level, or how all in you are on your goals and how clear you are around what that means. Because what I needed to be doing in that period was like, I needed to be all in on my three main responsibilities. I needed to be all in on taking care of my wife. I needed to be all in on taking care of my daughter. I needed to be all in on keeping my business going. I needed to do those things. And I wasn't, because I was carving out this big old chunk of space for bullshit, for just stuff that wasn't serving me or my mission at all. And then so what ended up happening was that I had to then like drop a lot of my workouts because I wasn't using my time well. And then I had to stay up late, which then made me more tired, which then made me want to escape even further. And so it was just like, through this arguably understandable escapism, I was actually making my life harder. I wasn't making it better. It wasn't a compassionate form of escapism. It was a dysfunctional form. And it had everything to do with the fact that I wasn't all in. I was just, you know, half in, right? And I think this is really how most people live. And this is like in the modern world. And it's certainly how I used to live. And just like coming back to it kind of just like woke me up to it. It's like all real progress in life, especially if you want to be excellent in anything, it demands sacrifice. It demands that you really orient your life around that thing. And if you don't do that, well, then you're just not going to get the results that you're looking for, right? But the problem today is that there are so many enticing escapes. Like, we've got the dopamine industrial complex, that I like to call them. That's the social media companies, the Netflix of the world, all the people who are engineering all of that highly addictive and tasty junk food. All of these people who are just trying to basically buy or get you to buy a dopamine hit that serves no value in your life, right? Like, that's what all these things are. They're things that give you a chemical reaction in your brain, and that's pretty much the only value. everything else, like you have the cost of the time, of the energy, of the money, all these other things, they drain you. Like where you want to be, right? Where you want to be is getting your dopamine hit from the things that actually are valuable to you. That's what dopamine's for. It's for the anticipation of a reward. But the things that most of us are hooked on, they're not actually rewards. They are the illusion of a reward. It's actually like it's like a debt. It's like, all right, we're going to give you some pleasure right now, but we're actually going to take something from you later. You're going to owe us something. Like that's what it is. Like if you're, pounding a bunch of junk food, yes, you get a bunch of pleasure up front, but the debt is then, you get some extra weight on your body that you'll then have to pay off later, or you're going to have to work out extra hard. And if you're, obviously super fit and that kind of thing, like, and doing ultra marathons and stuff, yeah, you can pound whatever the heck you want in terms of food and you'll probably be fine. But most of us are not like that, right? We're not actually paying off all that interest. Same thing with like video games, right? I could like rank myself up. I was, getting into diamond and stuff in the competitive. And then I was just like, what am I doing? Like this doesn't, what does this do? It literally serves no use in my life. All it does is make me stressed afterwards. And then, I will be pissed off half the time because I'll have a lever or, I won't play well or, just that kind of thing. Like it doesn't actually serve me. There is no reward, right? I'm much better off getting better at my job or building my relationships or like having things that actually create more goodness in my life rather than create this side existence, this side world, this side path. You got your main quest and you got your side quest. And it's like the more energy you feed the side quest, the less energy you have for the main one. Right? And the main one's where all the real value is. The main one is where you're going to find all the goodness in your life. And so everyone today is like they're hooked in on all these side quests. And I in many ways, I wouldn't even call them side quests. I'd call them just like straight up diversions. They're just like junk games that create the illusion of progress. And they actually lead to no progress at all. Right? And I'm not saying all of these things are blanketed bad things. It's like not like you can never have a cookie or you can never have, watch some Netflix or whatever. But I think most of us, we are doing too much down that direction, right? And, I've talked about this a lot in terms of my dopamine detox series and all of that kind of thing. But the big thing to recognize here that I don't think everyone does is that every time, like when you invest down one of these things, right? It's not just that instant that you are, talking about. So it's like if you get hooked on a video game and you play that video game for that moment, or you get, you start a new TV series, or, maybe even you start a new like sci-fi book or whatever it is. If it's really good, okay, if it's something you really enjoy, then there's actually a greater problem that occurs in that your main quest stops feeling so appealing. The main portion of your life where true progress lies, it actually stops feeling like something you want to do because you have this, beautiful bowl of dessert just sitting here waiting for you. It's like, well, why would you want to eat your lean meat and veggies then if you can have this ultra delicious, satisfying dessert, right? You have unlimited quantities of. Well, that's the thing is like you won't. You actually lose passion for it. And it actually makes your main quest taste worse, right? Or seem worse, right? And so this is the danger of living half in, all right? And I think that like this is like the future of personal development is the science of keeping yourself all in on the main quest of your life. Because as things continue to evolve, the diversions are only going to become more and more stimulating. They're only going to become more and more enticing. People are going to become better and better at hitting your mental, emotional, and physical buttons to create extremely satisfying experiences that really do nothing for you. They're just a product designed to extract resources from you. Okay. And what ends up happening is the more half in you go on life because you keep putting your energy into other things, the more of an NPC you become. It's pretty simple. It's like you abandon the main quest of your life, you become an NPC in your own life. And what's worse is you actually end up becoming like a pawn. You become a pawn to the powers that push and pull you. So this is what like the news media is about today. They try and pump the most sensationalist bull crap out there because that's what gets them clicks. That's what gets them to look. That's what scintillates your little novelty circuits. And what ends up happening then is like, you know, if you really plug into that, well, then they kind of control you. They control the way you think. They control what your opinions are. They control what you care about, what you avoid, what you look at, all of that kind of stuff. And then you become, part of their agenda. They can control you that way. Same thing with like all the other aspects of media. Same thing with the with like the food companies. They can get you hooked on their food. Arguably now, even with the bringing the whole medical thing with vaccines and everything like that, like there are a lot of systems in position right now that just want to control you and put you as like a good little consumer, right? They just want to harvest your resources, and they will as long as you let them, because they're going to get really good at it. They all have like the best engineers in the world, some of the best rhetoricians. They have like, scientists. They've got, so much mainstream help. They all want to control you, okay? Because if they can just turn you into that little battery, then they're going to suck all the life out of you that they can. Because they want to be rich. They're playing the main quest of their life, and they're like, oh, the main quest of my life means that I get to consume the energies and resources of all the people around me. Right? At least these are the bad guys, right? These are the people who are operating inauthentically. Not everyone's like this today, but this is where I think a huge amount of the world is at. A huge amount of the power, at least, of the world is at. And so the only way to fight this that keeps turning everybody like it's like the frickin' Matrix, where everybody's just like these little pods that are being harvested by the machine overlords, is to have people go all in on the main quest of their life. To instead of figuring out how can I kind of do like fit my necessary stuff in on the plate after I fill it up with garbage, instead it's like, all right, what would it look like if I completely oriented my life around my higher level goals? That's the big question here. What does that look like? Because that's what it means to go all in. So instead of being like, how could I set up my business so I can still play 4 hours of video games every day? The question becomes, how can I set up my business or how can I set up my life to best support my business, if that's your main objective, right? And when you really start thinking about that, like it changes everything. It changes like, almost every little decision that you can make. It's like, does this help me or does this hurt me? Does this make me stronger or does this make me weaker? And the cool thing that happens is when you do go all in, all of a sudden your choices have consequence. The time you go to bed and the time you wake up, that matters, right? What you eat matters. It has an impact on your health, on your energy levels, all that kind of stuff. And if maybe you're dealing with appearances in public and that kind of stuff, well, then your physique might matter too, because that's part of your messaging. Like what you consume, what you think about, how you like budget your dopamine. All of these things matter if you're really serious about the main quest of your life. Now, the problem that people run into as they start thinking this way is that they think, oh, well, I'd have to live basically 100% differently, and I'm nowhere near that, right? Like they start thinking about their ideal version of themselves who is totally all in on pursuing their goals. And the issue with this is that we've got like a split. There's usually some significant conflicts that occur as we start to try to realistically piece this together. And I think the best way to look at this is through my Triune self model. Basically, I have this idea where it's you got 3 different selves inside of you. You've got your terminal self, which is like your rational self. And that's like, the clear, logical thinking part of you. Then you've got your primal self. That's kind of like your gut. You're like, your baser emotions and drives and that sort of thing. That really just wants kind of physical pleasure and instinctual satisfaction. Okay. And then you've got your spiritual self, which is like your heart, your moral center. Okay. And each of these have a different sort of idea of what it means to be all in. They have a different idea of like what it means to really construct the best life. And so it's these conflicts. This is what really trips us up. So if we start with the terminal ideal, Okay. This is the rational sort of intellectual ideal. And this tends to be all about being ultra optimized. So it's like, all right, if I'm all in on my life, well, that means probably no video games, no porn, no internet surfing, no wasted time. I eat a perfect diet because that gives me the perfect energy. I've got an ultra optimized fitness program to give me, the best health and at the minimum amount of effort. And, I'm up at 5 a.m. and I'm the rock solid leader and head of my family and my business and blah, 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 right? So it's like, all that super hardcore, like if I'm going to turn myself into a robot kind of idea, all right? And clearly there's power to that, and a lot of that stuff's probably important. You probably do need to clean up a lot of that stuff, but if you try and go all in on that, you're going to burn out like that. You're going to barely be able to keep up from day one, okay? And the reason for that is because we've got the flip side, which is the primal ideal, the instinctual ideal. And really what that part wants is it wants to be ultra engaged. It's not so worried about being optimized as it wants to be engaged with life. It wants to be able to truly enjoy life. It's all about the experience of it. It's about trying to get the highs, the true, not even just like stimulatory highs, just the highs of true experience. That's what it wants. It wants to do work that you love, right? It wants to make sure you have fun. It wants to make sure that, you can sit on the beach with a drink and enjoy a sunset. It's like, the part that wants to laugh with buddies and friends and all this kind of thing. It's like, what are those deeper instinctual drives? It's also the part that wants to be on top of the world and absolutely crushing it in, business and all this kind of stuff. And it's also the part that just wants to feel straight good. It wants to eat that cake. It wants to, enjoy that drink, all of those kinds of sensory pleasures. And so that's, a lot of that stuff. It's good. Like, yeah, of course you want to enjoy life. You got one of them, right? There's a time to kick back and relax. There's a time to enjoy the sensations that you're experiencing, both in many ways, high and low. But a lot of that seems to conflict with that ultra rational, robot optimizer stuff, right? And then we got that third piece of us, which is the spiritual self. This is like our conscience, our true morality. And this part's what it wants to do is live guilt-free. It wants to live with an admiration for who you are. Like me as a Christian, it's like me, like it wants that peace of mind knowing that I'm living in alignment, serving the will of God. So it's like making sure that whatever optimizing I'm doing, it makes sense within my moral context, and make sure that like I'm honoring my dignity and the dignity of other people. Make sure it also wants to make sure that any sort of indulgence I'm doing, any sort of sensory, fun I'm having, whether it's, food, drink, work, sex, whatever, that also falls within my moral framework, that it respects my dignity and the dignity of others, right? And so figuring out how to fit all these desires together, I think, can be very difficult. And this is ultimately what I think gets in the way of people living all in, is that they haven't actually pieced together what the heck all in looks like for them. And so here's the best bet that I think you can do. All right. Instead of working with these high level abstractions of like, the ideal perfectly optimized robot self, or, the totally cool dude who just has the most fun, or the ultra moral, spiritual soldier. Okay. Instead of just looking at those high level archetypes, what we need is something closer, something more workable. We need to have a practical ideal. And this practical ideal is the current place where you can construct a compromise between these three different selves, where you can say, all right, here are the things that all three aspects of me agree are right for me right now. That all three aspects of me are ready to go all in on these things right now. And if you can do that, usually it's only going to be a couple of variables that you can really zero in on. Like, so for example, like, this is what I teach guys when it comes to quitting porn, is that's got to be your main objective. We got to get all three pieces of you bought in on that thing. Do a hard mode reboot, hard mode reforge, where, no porn, no sex, no anything sexual for 90 days, and go through the inner work necessary. And then you're going to be able to reboot your brain, quit porn, and, transform your life. Okay. But you got to be all in on that. And while you're doing that, chances are we can't do too much of everything else, right? We might not be able to, we might have to lean on some video games. We might have to lean on some junk food. We might have to lean on some indulgences to let off a little bit of pressure, a little bit of steam, because we're trying to focus on this big shift right now. And what I see happening is like guys, they get tremendous success who have never gotten success like this before because they would try to do too many things. They not only try and quit porn, they try to level up their productivity, their work, all this other kind of thing. And they would overload themselves and then they wouldn't get anywhere with anything. So they focus, they go all in on quitting porn, they do it, and then they go, 90, 120 days, whatever, and then they relapse. And sometimes I'll talk to them about it. And the reason why I'll find that out is because they never picked a new thing. They didn't have something new to go all in on. And so, quitting porn became easy. Staying porn free is easy after a certain point. And so they just lost that power. They started to go half in. They realized, oh, life's easy now. I can goof off over here and I can then go goof off over here. And then before they knew it, all of a sudden they were feeding more energy into these side diversions instead of the main story. And then, then they collapse, right? Then they become easy pickings for the dopamine industrial complex to come in and just like back under the puppet strings, okay? And so really what it's about is creating this series of missions in your life, these series of main objectives, and going all in on it and making sure that you're constantly adjusting what that focus is with a great level of clarity. So, for example, right now, for me, that means no more video games. Maybe socially I would do it in the same way that I would play like some cornhole or cards with friends or something like that, like a social sort of interaction. But I'm done trying to achieve status from playing video games personally. And there's a part of me that aches at that because I love them. I actually just like them too much. That's the problem. But here's the thing. Here's how you can tell that you're at you found a good thing to do, because you'll feel a loss. You should feel a loss unless you're like very unself-aware. These big things, there'll be a part of you that's like, oh, I don't want to give that up. How you know you're ready to is if you can do that while simultaneously thinking about what you'll gain. And then there's a feeling of like receiving. There's a feeling of gift. There's a feeling of excitement. So on one hand, it's like, oh, I'm giving up on the game of, totally being the top dog in the shooter game, being top of the leaderboard, all that kind of shit. There's a loss there, but then there's this gain feeling of like, oh man, I could be at the top of the leaderboard of my business, of my niche. I could actually level things up and blow things up to a degree that they've never been done in my life. Like I'm going to be able to scale my business in 2022 to an entirely different level because I'm ripe to explode. I just need to really just put in the all-in sort of effort. And when I think about that, it's like, bing! It's like super exciting, super powerful. And I can sense that there is a whole shift in identity and capability and who I can be if I embrace that. And so that's really, my goal is to do that and to manage, like be there for my family. So, for me, it's always like God first, family second, then work. So there's always the assumption that, I'm all in on my morals and my family first. And then, but the thing that takes up probably the bulk of my time is the business stuff, right? And so thinking about that even further, all right, the other thing that I'm clear on now, that I have a clear compromise internally, is that I'm done with junk food, pretty much indefinitely. And, there is a place, I would say, for ceremonial sugar, like when you are, having fun with friends or family, or maybe like one cheat meal or something a week or whatever. But like in general, day to day, I got to be done with it. And the reason for that is because I know I need the maximal fuel. I need the good fuel. I need the fuel to live with that level of energy. And then ideally, I would like to get into even creating fitness and health products eventually. I won't tell you more about them, but they're unique. They're probably not what you're thinking of, but I got to be able to really prove it first. And I would love to be able to use my physique in the marketing of it, be able to show you, hey, here's before, here's after, right? Like, and I'm pretty good shape now, but I'm not quite on the level where it's like, hey, put me on an advertisement yet, And so that's what I always want to be able to do is if I want to sell something, if I want to teach something to someone, I want to be the model of it. And that's why I'm comfortable selling productivity and quitting porn programs in general. It's because, well, I'm completely free from porn, and I have a significant level of sexual self-mastery. Same thing with productivity, outside of this little dip I'm being honest with you guys about here today. And then I want to be able to do that in the fitness and health space too, at least to some degree. And particularly, I'm super interested in the ultra efficient side of fitness and health. So like, how can you get big, strong, and full of energy while not having to spend your life at the gym or in the kitchen? That's what's most interesting to me. And I think that that's something that's, systems that you guys would like to hear about at some point. But I want to make sure that I can really do it authentically. And so I think about that. I think about the business opportunity in there, and then the ability to communicate my morals and values with my literal physique and everything like that. Well, sign me up. That's me going all in on my life. If I'm not doing that, well, then I know that I'm not. Like if I let my body lag behind, if I do that, well then it's clear that I'm not 100% all in on my vision. And that's something that I feel like I'm ready to do. I wasn't always at this place, right? Like there was a period of my life where all I could get myself to do was quit porn. That was literally all I could get myself to do. Another period in my life where it was like all I could focus on was making sure I did 3 hours of focused work a day. That took everything in me. And now I can do that like it's nothing. There is a period in my life where all I could get myself to do was like try and just like go to the gym. I was in college. That's all I could do, right? Like I barely studied. I barely did anything else productive other than go to the gym. And so like sometimes you got to shift your focus, okay? And you got to figure out, what does all in look like for you right now? Find that intersection, right? Because in that intersection, it's always going to be, all right, there's going to be a feeling of significant loss, but it's going to be the loss of something that is holding you back. You know that this thing is preventing you from going all in on the bigger mission in your life. And you're going to give that thing up, and then you're going to think about, well, what do you stand to gain? And if you think about that, and there's a huge level of excitement, well, then you found the right thing, okay? Because that's the vision you need to constantly come back to. In my new Reforged Man course, I call this the anchor vision. This is something that you must really hone and define. It's like, what do you stand to gain through this change? Because that's the core thing that you're going to be feeding to yourself in these moments of decision, in these moments of conflict, right? And so nail that down. And I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear, like, what does going all in look like for you right now where you are at? Because I want you to feel this feeling, because something happens. There's something that happens inside of you when you know that you are all in on the main quest of your life, because there's like a clarity that happens. There's a fire in the belly that begins to be generated. There's a ferocity that you gain access to. Some people, I think, only get this kind of clarity when something really bad is happening. Okay, like I've seen this with some people where they're depressed, they're weak, they are pushovers, they have like zero energy, they're apathetic, but then something happens to their kid that pisses them off, and all of a sudden they're like like God's like lightning bolt. They just become like on fire, and they're not going to take any shit. They're going to make sure that their kid is taken care of. There's going to be consequences for anyone who gets in the way. And all of a sudden they're just ignited. And the reason they're ignited is because they care about their kids so much that they would go through anything for them. And they just, all of a sudden, for that instant, in that context, they are all in, and they are a different person. And you can see a similar thing with people who maybe, whose back's really up the wall, whose back is really up against the wall. They are in a really hard position where it's like either step up or they're screwed. You'll see this with, like, in the most basic sense, it's like in these fight or flight scenarios where it's like, people will get hysterical strength, or people will do crazy things because they're afraid for life and limb. You don't need to wait until that point to start accessing that power, to start accessing that like drive. You can start doing it now, but it has to come at the cost of the sacrifice, right? Giving up these lesser things so that you can pursue something greater. And that's what I really want. That's what that's that inner fire I've talked about recently. It's like, it comes from going all in. It comes from saying, like, I have a clear path in front of me, and there's nothing that's going to get in the way of me doing it. And that's it. That's it. When you have that kind of clarity and you have the clear vision and the reasoning for why you want to do it, well, then you unlock yourself. You unlock yourself. People think that, like, by going all in, they're going to be so drained and so tired, and like, it's just going to be so hard. And like, it will be if you set it up stupidly, if you don't actually go through that internal compromise I was talking about and really dialing in exactly what your target should be, exactly what your mission should be, then yeah, you will probably just feel completely depleted. But if you take the time to really figure it out and narrow it down and be willing to just not do it all at once, then the opposite happens, is you actually become enlivened. You get filled with power and drive and confidence and a ferocity that maybe you didn't even know you had. Okay. And so that's what I want to do, is I want to light that fire inside of all you guys. And that's what I think in many ways my purpose is, and teach people how to find that and how to keep it lit, because there's so much that goes into that. Pretty much all of my work that I've done up to this point has served this goal, and I'm only kind of now realizing it, which is, pretty cool. Cool to finally be realizing it. And so I've got some big plans for the channel for the 2022 and this whole project. And so some things are going to be shifting up, going to still be figuring out some other stuff. But I'm super excited, and I hope you guys continue to join me. I will be getting more consistent content out. I may change the format and delivery system somewhat, but this is what I'm all in on, guys. And if you're interested in this, well, then keep an eye on the Vanguard. Check out the $5 tier now if you're interested, because that's also another place where I'm going to be doing a lot of work. I want to make sure that I can create a community of guys who are interested in going all in, who are really, that's what the Vanguard is, people who are at the front, who are willing to really charge the front lines of life. And so I think that that's simply harder to do today than it's ever been. But the payoff has never been greater. If you can dodge the control of all these pitfalls, then you have basically unlimited potential. Like, you can do anything you want with modern technology. It's insane. Every single one of us could be a king. And so why not? Let's do it. So I'll keep you guys updated on everything that's coming along, and hopefully you got something useful out of this. But I'll see you on the next one. Ooh, yeah.